We just got this bad boy in, and I wanted to make a little video about it. Literally just opened it up. So this is the SSL X Desk. It says XDesk because it was originally designed to integrate with SSL's rack mixing system, and it actually has an expander port to connect to those. I do not have the intention of investing in that system at this time, but this was a great solution for what I needed, which is, here, let's bring this with us and pivot. As you know, I do hybrid mixing. I do analog on this API box console, and I love it. It's a fantastic console. But what's been happening lately is I've been getting projects to mix that have lots and lots and lots of tracks. Nashville tracks, in particular, the singer-songwriter Matt Freedman is having songs produced in Nashville. Tracks are sent up here. We do his vocals, and then we mix and master here. And so beyond just having tons and tons of tracks and needing more channels, for that, I've also been running into what most people think of as the biggest shortcoming of this mixer, which is that API elected to not include effects returns on this board. And I only assume that that was by design to encourage you to bump up to a 1608 console, which I understand. But unfortunately, that is not a small bump. Yeah, that's a rather large leap. And, short of that, I'm doing pretty well on this console and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And so I wanted to address these needs in a way that didn't involve $30,000 more dollars. And more than that, even considering extra patch bays and converters and everything else that would be required. So the answer to that was this. API themselves make an 8-channel, or made, I should say, an 8-channel summing rack unit called the 8200 or 8200A. Much like the SSL X Logic system, API made their own rack mixer with components, and it's great as well. At this point, they've discontinued that. I don't know, they may have discontinued the entire line, I'm not sure, but they definitely discontinued the summing module, which is the one that I was interested in, the 8200. I did some research about like whether I should get a used one, and they're they're hard to come by. They were discontinued 10 years ago. There's a few of them out there, but it's API build quality, so there's still a bit of an investment. And it was a little wonky in terms of the power supply. Some people selling the unit didn't want to sell it with the power supply. For anybody who is interested in that unit, I did speak to API, and they told me that the power supply for their new dedicated monitor controller, which looks amazing, by the way, is actually the same voltage. Technically on paper, it works for the 8200A, and that they were going to test it with that unit to make sure that it met noise specs and everything that would be needed. Before they could do that, I decided on this instead. So there's a lot of options out on the market for summing devices, and Lord knows everybody I spoke to threw them my way. Both my guy at Sweetwater and my guy at Vintage King, tried to interest me in some other pieces. But this one really met the need in a way that no other piece did. And unfortunately, this got discontinued as well, but only just recently. So there's a lot of them still around and in very good condition. As a matter of fact, Phil at SSL thought he might have even had a demo unit for me, but they didn't, and that was okay, because Vintage King had a used one, and I felt really, really good about purchasing from Vintage King. They have an incredible tech staff, so I felt very confident that it had been maintenanced well and that they wouldn't be selling it if it wasn't in good condition. Plus, they include a 1-year warranty, and I was able to finance it on my Vintage King Synchrony card. So all of those added up to this being the answer. And I'm very happy about it. So funny, I guess one thing I should point out is the things that led me to this were not only that this unit, just the universal response from people that own this unit online was that the headroom was amazing on this, and that it really, sounded comparable to, SSL claims super audio on all their devices, even their, the cheapest 2-channel interfaces. But this one, really, people had directly compared it to J series consoles, and it apparently had the goods in terms of just headroom and transparency, and was going to operate on the same playing field as the API in terms of headroom and overall sound quality. So that was very attractive to me. But the other thing that was interesting was, first of all, faders, yes. I really, most summing boxes don't have them. I really wanted them. I have started using the faders, as you can see, on the API, and I'm really into it. I really love I love the freedom of analog faders and being able to reconfigure a mix really quickly. And I've done years and years of live sound work, and I enjoy riding vocal fader on an actual mix print. So I like faders. The other thing about it, though, is the aux sends pretty much are exactly the same. It's 1 stereo and 2 mono. The only difference is they're flipped. So on the API, 1 and 2, auxes 1 and 2 are mono, and 3/4 is the stereo send. And on the SSL, it's 1 and 2 is the stereo, 3 and 4 are mono. And in both cases, the stereo send doubles as a Q send, but it doesn't need to be. That's but it's convenient. So that similarity of just the general structure, the architecture, really, and then also let's get into the features of this console that really attracted it to me as well. So the similarity is great, but and then one of the main things that also was important to me was there are inserts on every channel. Some summing boxes have them, some don't. To me, that's a deal breaker. Like, I need to be able to patch in processing, on them. I want to really use this as a mixer, not just summing. So for that, I need to be able to patch in an EQ and compressor. So this has that as well. But so in terms of comparison, that was nice. It's like every single one of the summing channels on the API has inserts. Every channel here has inserts. So now, moving beyond the comparison between the two, some unique features about this that I'm really happy about. First and foremost, there's an input trim, which is really awesome. I mean, the API doesn't even have that. So I'm super happy about that, to be able to set my output levels from the DAW, get optimal D to A conversion, and then control it here and make sure that I'm getting an optimal level to go through the aux sends and the inserts to whatever gear that I'm using. It's nice to have that control. I'm not sure I'm going to end up using it at all, but every one of these channels is actually a dual channel. So there's an alternate signal path. So that's interesting, at least. I only really need 8, and I don't have the converters for more than that right now. But it's nice to have the option, and who knows, maybe in the future that'll become more useful. Yeah. So beyond that, there's the input trim, the inserts, the aux sends, and then cut and solo, of course, faders. Then the master section, and this gets interesting as well. The master section has inserts, as you would expect and want, but what it has that's really cool is there's a mix level knob, and so there's a wet dry basically for the insert, and that's amazing. That gives me the ability to do New York style parallel compression on the mix bus, and I love that. I mean, the API doesn't have that. I wish I had that. So that's phenomenal. I'm really enjoying that. And then the other thing that this has that the API doesn't is effects returns. It actually has 2 stereo effects returns. So that's fantastic. And I'm going to make really good use of that. That's going to free up, I've been using channels, for effects on the API, and so this will free up a lot of resources, put it that way. It's funny, like I had actually already decided on this, and I had already ordered it, and I was talking to Ben at Trace Audio, and anyone who's not familiar with Trace, it's a company in Nashville that does custom cable builds and also some custom gear building too. Ben will build DIY kits for gear like Cappy gear, and others, and then sell it, already constructed. But he'll also do any kind of custom cabling and patchbay wiring, and he's amazing, very nice guy. I've already had him build cabling for me. And I was talking to him about building a special cabling situation where I could merge the aux sends to make it feel like one big console, so that aux 1 here merged with aux 1 there, so on and so forth. And he had ideas on how to make that happen, but sometimes I do a lot of external processing. So like I had to draw diagrams for him and make clear what I actually wanted for him. And then immediately, as soon as he said he could do it, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe that's not the most efficient way to make use of these resources. And, it's funny how important it is to keep your thinking flexible. I realized that, what would actually be an amazing use of this would be to dedicate this to drums. And I was already doing that on the left side of the console here. But if I dedicated this to drums, not only can I can pull the EQs I'm already using, put them in an external chassis and still use them here. So nothing's changed in terms of the equalizers or compressors that I'm using. That'll be exactly the same. But since the aux sends will be discrete, I can then use them just for a drum reverb, and that will free up a send over there on the API that I can send to something else. But also making use of the mix bus insert becomes really cool, because I can then do it's a drum bus, and I can do a drum bus processing on that too, and doing the parallel compression also sounds really awesome. Right now, as you've seen in other videos, I've been using the stereo aux send on the API to create a drum bus and sending that to a stereo compressor. I was using the distressors. Lately, I've gone back to the, get that in focus, to the Fatso. But I could actually see doing the exact same thing here. I could just use it as an insert on the whole mix bus here, and then do parallel. But what I like is the ability to create the mix, a custom mix to go to the compressor. So and lean a little heavier on toms and overheads, on that mix. So I might still do that here, and use the stereo sends, and then I can just bring them back on an effects return. So that's convenient. And then the API has the built-in, sorry about the focus, the built-in summing input, which I was using as my effects return from the Lexicon PCM92 over there. But I can bring that back here instead, and then this whole mixer can go into that. And the nice thing about that is it injects to the mix bus before the built-in 527 compressors and before the insert on the mix bus here. So it really it'll blend well with anything that's happening on this console. So yeah, I think it's going to be great, and I'll get different flavors. I'll get some SSL flavor on drums, and then I'll have the API for everything else. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Right now I have 32 channels of conversion, so there's the 24 going to the API, and then the 8 left over at the moment are. I didn't get that. Could you? That's because it's not for you. The 8 left over are filling in things like mix bus out, and like for when I'm coming out of the it goes through the analog stage, goes back to the DAW, and then monitoring that. That's 2 of the channels on the 8 that are left over. So I'm going to be short some conversion here. And I think as a temporary get by, I will be using my Apollo X4, which, as I recall, has 6 analog outputs. And that'll work for a while. Sorry. Yeah, Siri. I'm not talking to you. And hopefully at some point soon I'll be able to add another links, and so that they're all the same flavor, and then have more than I need for whatever it is I need to do. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun figuring it all out and getting it integrated, and I'm looking forward to it. So that's it. Thanks. And I should do some service to myself and ask everybody, if you're liking these videos, do please like and follow and share and all that good stuff. It's been really fun building up an audience on YouTube, and I'm trying to get these videos to be a little more slick, but this one was just about this piece coming in the door. So all right, thanks a lot. Take care, guys.